access to food. We got a lot of food ourselves, and we're going to bring it up. Make sure that they don't have barriers stopping people. You know, you've seen the areas where they actually have food, and the people are screaming for the food, and they're 35, 40 yards away, and they won't let them because they have lines that are set up. And whether they're set up by Hamas or whoever, but they're very strict lines, so we have to get rid of those lines. But we're going to be getting some good, strong food. We can save a lot of people. I mean, some of those kids that's real starvation stuff. I see it. And you can't fake that. So we're going to be even more involved. We did some airlifts before, some airdrops, and the people are running for it. And the Prime Minister is going to help us. They're very effective with that. You've done that before, and for many, they've done that for 100 years very well. So it's not very hard to do, actually.
Mr. President, you say you love Scotland. You're the most Scottish president ever in the White House. Is there a better deal to be done for Scotland, for Scottish industry, in the deal you've done with the Prime Minister? Whisky, for example.
Well, I have great love for Scotland. You know, my mother loved Scotland, and she loved the Queen. I don't know, I might hurt myself by saying that the monarchists are going to like it. Some other people would, but she loved the Queen. Whenever the Queen was on television, she wanted to watch. And she would come back religiously. She'd come back to Scotland once a year with my sister Marion, primarily, and sometimes my sister Elizabeth also. But they love this part of the world. And, you know, we're talking about the Isle of Lewis. We're talking about serious Scotland. That's serious Scotland. There was no doubt about it. So, yeah, it gives me a feeling, you know, it's different. You go to another country, you have no relationship to it. You got to like maybe the head of the country or something. But it's different when your mother was born here, Stornoway. Right in Stornoway, a beautiful little place.
So is there a better deal to be done? Is there a better deal to be done for Scotland, for whisky, for example? Because of your love of Scotland, is there a better trade deal to be done for Scottish businesses like whisky?
Well, I assume when we do our trade deal overall, a lot of it comes to Scotland, I hope. Maybe all of it should go to Scotland.
It's a very good deal for the whole United Kingdom, and we've already achieved great things out of the deal, and we'll achieve even more if we work together.
You know, I was very particular. This is a part of the world I want to see thrive. It's going to thrive.
Mr. President, back to Gaza. You talk about Hamas stealing food and stealing aid. What responsibility does Israel have for limiting aid to the region? And if I could ask a follow-up to the Prime Minister, what pressure can be put on Israel, and is that something that you and the United States could work on together?
Israel has a lot of responsibility. They're hampered by the fact that you still have 20 hostages or so. And the people of Israel are very concerned about the 20 hostages. It's very interesting. You could say they could be more concerned about retribution than the 20 hostages, but they really want the 20 hostages to survive and live to make it. You know, many of the hostages came to my office, in the Oval Office, and I was amazed I would ask them the question, was there any sign of love? Was there any sign of, when you were a hostage and you have all of these people from Hamas around you, sometimes hundreds, sometimes 10, sometimes 2, but you're a hostage and you're being stored in a pipe. It's not even really, you know, a cave, or it's a pipe, a little pipe. And some said they didn't think they were going to make it because they were losing air, there wasn't enough air, and they'd open up the pipe just in time, but they didn't do it on purpose. They just happened to open it. They got lucky. But I said, did they ever wink at you and say, like, don't worry, you're going to be okay? Did they ever give you some extra food, even if it was a piece of bread? Did they ever give you anything during that time? And some were there for 400 or 500 days now, right? It's a long time, a year and a half, more than that. And not one person said there was any love from anybody. You know, in other words, you have hundreds of people. And you see it in the movies where somebody's a prisoner and somebody's helping. You even see it with Germany, where people would be let into a house and live in an attic in secret. You know, you see signs of stuff. I said, did you see anything like, did they wink at you? Did they say, don't worry, you're going to be okay? I never received, I ask that question all the time. I've never received one answer that said, yeah, they really wanted to help. No, the hatred is just incredible.
But sir, on the access to food issue, what more can Israel do, and again to the Prime Minister as well?
Well, I think Israel can do a lot. I will say that Iran, I think, interjected themselves in this last negotiation. Can you imagine the beating they took? We wiped out their nuclear possibilities. They can start again. If they do, we'll wipe it out faster than you can wave your finger at it. We'll have to do that. We will do that gladly, openly and gladly. They've been saying, Iran's been sending out bad signals, I'll tell you. For a country that just got wiped out, they've been sending very bad signals, very nasty signals. And they shouldn't be doing that. They shouldn't be doing that. They were talking about things that they shouldn't be talking about. They were interviewed on a recent show, and the foreign minister saying things that he shouldn't be talking about, shouldn't be saying. And I think they got involved in this negotiation, telling Hamas and giving Hamas signals and orders, and that's not good. That's not
Prime
good.
Minister,
I would say that we need to get the hostages out. They've been held for a very, very long time, and we must always start from there. But also recognise the situation on the ground in Gaza is absolutely intolerable, and I think that certainly speaking for the British public and myself, those images of starving children in particular are revolting, and there's a sense of revulsion in the British public at what they're seeing, and they know, and we know, that humanitarian aid needs to get in at speed, at volume. Yes, some can be airdropped, and we're working with others, with the US, with Jordan on that, but the trucks need to get in because that's the only way you can get the volume in. And we do thank the President for the work he's done to try to get to a ceasefire, which we desperately need, but also to put aid in to the region. There needs to be much more of that. We need to galvanise other countries in support of getting that aid in. And yes, that does involve putting pressure on Israel, because it absolutely is a humanitarian catastrophe now. We also need to look beyond that situation to what then happens in the event of a ceasefire, which is desperately needed. And that's why I'm really pleased that we're having a discussion about what a peace plan would look like after that, the component parts of that. And we have to be really clear at this point that Hamas can play absolutely no part in any future governance in Palestine and and in Gaza. And it's really important that we're clear about what triggered this, who took the hostages, and giving out passports after the terrorist organisation. But I think today the focus has to be on getting that humanitarian aid in.
Mr. President, will the UK avoid your pharmaceutical tariffs, and will it happen before August the 1st?
Well, we'll be announcing on pharmaceuticals sometime in the very near future. We have a very big plan on pharmaceuticals. We want to bring a lot of the pharmaceuticals back to America where they should be. If you look at COVID, it sort of taught us a lesson. We were getting our pharmaceuticals from other countries. We almost didn't make any. We used to make them ourselves, and we're going to want to be making a lot of them ourselves, all of them in a sense. But you also have a good pharmaceutical business. We'll be dealing with you on pharmaceuticals also. And we certainly feel a lot better with your country working on pharmaceuticals for America than some of the other countries that were. With the relationship we have, and you would not use that as a cudgel. You wouldn't be using it as a block. But we're going to be announcing sometime very soon, I think, pharmaceuticals are our whole thing. And the companies know. And drug prices are going to be coming down very substantially in the U.S., very, very substantially. And that'll happen very soon.
Mr. President, we can all sense your frustration with Vladimir Putin. Sorry, we can all sense your frustration with Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
Do you think he has been lying to you about his intentions in Ukraine?
Well, I don't want to use the word lying. All I know is we'd have a good talk, and it seemed on, let's say, 3 occasions, it seemed that we were going to have a ceasefire and maybe peace, and you divide it up and you do whatever you have to do, that obviously to get to the end. And all of a sudden, missiles are flying into Kiev and other places. And I say, what's that all about? I spoke to him 3-4 hours ago, and it looked like we were on our way, and then I'd say forget it, and I'm not going to talk anymore. You know, this has happened on too many occasions, and I don't like it. I don't like it.
Mr. President, you have a successful social media site. There are new powers here to censor your state's mandated powers.
To censor my site?
To censor your site and
mean
Twitter
Truth?
and Facebook.
Truth?
I mean Truth. Is that okay?
Well, I don't think he's going to censor my site because I say only good things. Will you please uncensor my site?
Yeah, we're not censoring anyone. We've got some measures which are there to protect children, in particular from sites like suicide sites. We've had too many cases in the United Kingdom of young children taking their own lives, and when you look through their social media, they've been accessing sites which talk about suicide and encouraging, if you like, children down that road, and that is what we want to stop. There's nothing about censoring free speech.
But that treats all adults like
this
children.
country is the proud
But that can treat all adults
free
like
speech
children.
in this country has been for a very long time. We're very, very proud of it. We will protect it forever. But at the same time, I personally feel very strongly that we should protect our young teenagers, and that's what it usually is, from things like suicide sites. I don't see that as a free speech issue. I see that as a child protection
We
issue.
actually passed a bill in Congress, headed up by my wife, actually, which was to pull bad stuff out having to do with children, because it is a problem. But I cannot imagine him censoring Truth Social. That's more of a very political, and it's been a very big success.
It's not going to happen.
And I only say good things about him and his country, so if they censor me, you're making a mistake. I'm going to give my ambassador the job, make sure it's not censored. I had not heard that.
Mr. President, question about golf?
You're a big investor in this area, Mr. President.
Say it,
You're a big investor in this area of Scotland.
to put it mildly.
Put it mildly.
Like this ballroom that we built
It's
from
amazing.
scratch.
Do you worry, though, about the risk of increased taxes here? Will that stop you investing? And do you have a message last night on the soccer to the English Lionesses who won the European trophy?
So I think that I have a theory that low taxes bring growth. We just passed a big tax cut bill, the biggest bill in the history of our country, actually. And one big beautiful bill, I used to call it the great one big beautiful, we got the word great out, but it's actually called the one big beautiful bill. It's essentially a very large tax cut bill for everybody. And our country's, pretty soon, I think I can say it right now, our country's never done better. We had a country that was dead. It was dead 6 months ago, a year ago. Leaders from NATO, we had a very successful meeting at NATO, your prime minister was there. It was an unbelievable love fest with all of those countries, and they agreed to go 5% and all the things. Very smart to do. But many of the leaders said, essentially, they said, your country was dead 1 year ago. 1 year ago, we had a dead, and we did. We had a dead country. We had a president who didn't know where the hell he was. We had horrible, horrible people running our country. I think they were sick people, actually, sick. You talk about censorship, those are big, that's all they did was censor, and they didn't know what to do. And they had high taxes. They wanted more tax, total censorship, transgender for everybody, men playing in women's sports, everything bad they wanted, and they still do. That's what they still do. That's why they're down at 15% or something, I saw it today, the lowest that the other part of the Democrats have ever been. But no, I find that when you lower taxes, you get growth. I will say this area, and the Prime Minister hasn't been here very long, on all fairness. I think he'll be a tax cutter. But I find that as we cut taxes, we did more business.
Yeah.
In my first tax bill, we cut taxes from 39% down to 22%. And we ended up at the end of the first year, when it was still a little raw, we ended up taking in much more revenue than we did at 39%. It was pretty amazing. And we're taking in a lot of revenue right now, and this was an additional tax cut. So I find, for whatever it's worth, tax cuts are very good.
Mr. President, you moved up the deadline to now 10 or 12 days. Is the sanction the same that you're going to slap a 100% tariff on anybody who does business with Russia? Or what's
So what I'm doing is we're going to do secondary sanctions, unless we make a deal, and we might make a deal. I don't know. You don't know. It's we've done so many peace deals this is the one I started out with, and, you know, I know President Putin called me, he wanted to know if I could help him with Iran. I said, no, I don't need your help with Iran, I need your help with Russia. And so that's the one deal that continues to linger. And, you know, we're losing 5,000, they're losing. I'm not losing, you're not losing, but 5,000 Russian and Ukrainian kids a week are dying. And that's not mentioning the people that are dying also in towns where, you know, he's lobbing missiles into certain towns like Kiev. And he's got to make a deal. It's too many people are dying. It's a really bloody war. And the 5 and now, they're really telling me that number is obsolete. It's like 7.
That's terrible.
So you have 7,000 Russian and Ukrainian soldiers dying every single week for no reason whatsoever. So you would think, based on common sense, you would think he'd want to make a deal. We'll find out.
No communications publicly. Have you had any other Ukrainian channels conversations with the Russians reiterating this?
In what?
Reiterating this new pressure and deadline.
You know, and we're going to have a, yeah, I mean, well, you're the press. I'm reiterating it to you. Yeah, I'd say 10 to 12 days. I'll announce it probably tonight or tomorrow. But there's no reason to wait. If you know what the answer is going to be, why wait? And it would be sanctions and maybe tariffs, secondary tariffs. You know what a secondary tariff is. And look, the Russian economy, I don't want to do that to Russia. I love the Russian people. They're great people. I don't want to do that to Russia. But this thing, they're losing a lot of Russians. They've lost 1 million Russians. And that's the, you know, sons, that's the sons and daughters of Russian families. They leave the house, they go, bye mom, bye dad, and then they get blown away. And Ukrainian too. Look at Ukraine. It's a disaster what's happened there. But it continues to go on. As you know, we made a deal where the European Union is essentially involved. It's NATO, and we're supplying weapons to NATO. NATO's now paying because the United States, because of Biden's in for $350 billion, the European nations are in for about $100 billion. It should be the opposite way, by the way, because we have a big ocean in between. It should be the opposite way. But I think that eventually something's going to happen. It should happen fast. So many people are dying. You know, when I settled out with Congo and Rwanda, they lost almost 8 million people. And it just made so much sense. And if I didn't get involved, they wouldn't have done it. They weren't even thinking about settling it. It was just going on forever. And nobody could go into those territories because they'd get killed. They'd get killed. And now they have I hear it's a whole different ballgame. We settled it. This is one that should be settled. Russia, Ukraine. This is one that really should be settled.
Mr. President, on Scotland, Mr. President, Scotland's First Minister has today set out his plans for a second referendum on Scottish independence. Can I get your reaction to that as someone with deep ties to Scotland? And, sorry, Mr. Prime Minister, can I also get your thoughts on that? If the SNP do win a majority at next year's election, then they have the right to hold a referendum, do they not?
Well, I don't want to get involved in your politics. We got enough politics of our own. I will say that I predicted what was going to happen the last time. You remember, I was opening the first course over at Aberdeen, and I was over here, and at the same time, and they asked me that question. I made a prediction. It was the day before the vote, and I made it correct. I like to be correct, but I made a correct prediction. I don't know. I do say that when they made that deal, somebody said that it was, and I remember this very distinctly, I said, could they do this all the time? There was a little bit of a restriction, like 50 or 75 years before you could take another vote. Because, you know, a country can't go through that too much. I don't know the First Minister, but I've heard great things about him. I've spoken to him. I hear very good things about him, and I'm meeting him today. So maybe I'll have a better opinion then.
And let me answer that straightforwardly, because I believe in a stronger Scotland, in a better United Kingdom. And I think that at a time like this, when it's quite clear that there's uncertainty and volatility around the world, the strength of the United Kingdom together is very important for all 4 nations, very important for Scotland. And that should be our priority, that should be our focus, not on the politics, which feels like the politics of yesteryear now, at a time like this. And I think that the First Minister should probably focus more on his delivery in Scotland than on his constitutional issues, and we might have a better health service in Scotland. But at a time like this, I think the United Kingdom is always stronger as four nations. I think that's better for all four nations. I think that's how Scotland is stronger. Look at the deal that we've been able to do with the United States, a really important deal that we made just months ago. That is what the United Kingdom can do when we act as a powerful set of four nations together, and there are very many other examples.
Mr. President, you toured the Federal Reserve last week, and they're set to meet this week. Do you think your visit has inspired a potential rate cut, or how do you see things shaping out this week?
Well, it's interesting. I did tour it. I toured the building.
Yes.
And if you looked at this building, if you came here like 14, 15 years ago, we've had it a long time. It's been an honor to have Turnberry. But I was on much more opulent walls, ceilings, floors. We had to do this. And we did a very great job. I mean, you see how beautiful it is inside. Everything was saved, everything was preserved. We had ceilings that were in bad shape, they were falling down. You know, it's very old, wasn't properly maintained. Now it's brand new and beautiful, and we saved everything. If you really think here, you took a look and you were sort of commenting the coloring. Now this is a brand new building, but if you look outside, it's equally opulent and beautiful, and we didn't do that by spending hundreds of millions of dollars in surrounding a railing underneath the area that you're painting. I mean, I've never seen that like that. Brand new, beautiful plywood, very expensive, wrapped around a figurine or a railing to preserve it. But you don't have to do that. You can just wrap a cloth, they call it a blanket, and you don't even have to do that if you're careful when you're doing the ceiling. But I don't know what they did. They'd take down a ceiling and put up a new ceiling, and the new ceiling had no opulence to it. Or they'd fix the ceiling. But I would say that all I need is a good plaster and a can of paint. And, they spent $3.9 billion. And I spent a lot of money too, but it's I'd say 3.8 billion less, meaning I spent probably $100 million making this place incredible.
And you were saying a lot of that was local trades.
I used local trades.
Windows, I think, in the next room.
I had local trades to a lot of this. We have the most opulent windows next door, and I had a choice. Do I take them out? And, they've suffered through 125 years of storms. You have very big storms in this area. When you have a storm, you have a storm. And they made it, barely, but they were in bad shape. So I had some local people come up and we looked at them. You have some great craftsmen here, I think is what you're getting at. And they said, sir, honestly, they've had it. We can copy it and do it much better. And they did. If you take a look at the windows in the various dining rooms, they're magnificent. And they're new, and they're much better looking than what was there. Same exact look, other than a much higher quality.
But do you foresee a rate cut?
And they're local people. I use a lot of your local people. You have really great local tradesmen here, yes?
But do you foresee a rate cut this week? Do you expect the Fed...
A rate cut?
Yeah, do you expect
meaning a tax cut?
No. Do you expect the Fed to cut rates this week?
I think he has to. You had 11 cuts, In Europe, they had 11 cuts. In other places, they had 10 or 11 cuts. And we had none, but I'm not going to say anything bad. We're doing so well, even without the rate cut. With the rate cut, it would be better. It affects our housing a little bit. Look, we should be 3 points lower. Each point is $360 billion. Can you imagine that? That's big numbers. Each point, 1 point of cut, is the equivalent of $360 billion in savings. That's big stuff, Those are big numbers in the U.S. Everything's big. He should cut. a smart person would cut. You know, he leaves very soon, so it's like one of those things, but I'll miss him greatly.
Who will you appoint?
On Turnberry, and on Turnberry, if I may, have you or will you enlist the Prime Minister in your effort to bring the Open back to Turnberry? And Prime Minister, you described this beautiful course. Do you agree with the President that it's time to bring the Open back to Turnberry?
Well, as you know, that's not a matter directly for me, that's for the sporting authorities. But look, I mean, it is the first time I've been here. It's absolutely magnificent, both inside and out, and looking at the courses itself and the building. It's incredible. But the decision on the Open is not a decision for me, as you'll understand. I should just pick up on the earlier question, because I for one will say congratulations to the Lionesses. Last night our women's football team won the Euros, well, defended the Euros, I should say, which was a really big success, and the mental and physical resilience that they showed was quite incredible. So there's a lot of bunting out today and tomorrow to celebrate them, bring that cup home.
Did you get the chance to do any planning for the upcoming state visit, and how is that going to work? Where would you stay, and anything about this?
Well, I'm looking forward to it. It's never been done before, twice. We had our original at Buckingham Palace, and now I guess we're going to Windsor.
Yeah.
And it's never been done, and I'm a big fan of King Charles. I've known him for quite a while. A great guy, great person. He looks really well to me. He looks great. So we look forward to coming over. It's going to be, it was one of the most beautiful evenings I've ever seen. I hate to say it, but nobody does it like you people in terms of the pomp and ceremony. And I look forward to being here with the ambassador. Our ambassador is a very, very successful man who just wanted to do this. And I said, how are you going to be able to do that? And he's so committed to, the relationship between the countries. But he's a very great guy and a very, very successful man. So I very much thank you for doing this.
Well, thank you for the honors.
Mr. President, about the state visit, will you go to London, or are you worried it's no longer about it?
About what?
Will you visit London during the state visit, or are you worried?
I will. I'm not a fan of your mayor.
Why not?
I think he's done a terrible job, the mayor of London, but a nasty person.